For today's discussion, I'm going to talk about protein needs of athletes and non athletes. I'm going to explore if athletes and non athletes have extremely high protein needs. So, first of all, I have to establish that I'm just looking at healthy population for both athletes and non athletes. And my premise is that athletes have high needs, the general public does not. However, both of them do not have extremely high protein needs. So let's examine this in our coming up slides. Do athletes need protein? First of all, everybody needs protein, but we are talking about athletes here. So we need to understand why would athletes need protein. Protein is necessary for muscle protein synthesis to promote repair and remodeling of muscles. And feeding induced protein synthesis produces greatest contribution to the net anabolic response at muscle level through essential amino acids, especially leucine. The area that has been a focus of performance nutrition has been to determine the optimal level of protein intake in a meal to stimulate post-exercise muscle protein synthesis response to the maximum. So what is the optimal level of protein? First of all, we have to understand that it is dose dependent and it is based on an individual's needs. According to one study, ingested protein dose response plateaued at 0.25 grams per kg per meal. And as I said, it has to be individual based, so for some, it could be higher. And it is also established that not more than 30 grams of high quality protein shows any additional anabolic benefit. And these recommended protein intakes can be met through diet alone without the need of supplement, which we're going to talk about in a bit. So the protein requirements are dependent on other factors as well. For example, the type of protein you're consuming, the quality of protein, the intensity of the exercise, your muscle mass, the duration of the exercise, your exercise mode, were you just walking or were you doing some intense exercise? And the cooking method also makes a difference. So now this is really important to understand. Is it only protein that athletes need? We have to consider the role of the food matrix. For example, the whole egg consists of a food matrix that is rich in high quality proteins, lipids, vitamins, and minerals. So we look at the figure in the next slide and talk about this more. The figure shows us food components within the whole egg and its contribution to the stimulation of post-exercise muscle protein synthesis. We can see that the whole egg is rich in high quality dietary proteins, but it also constitutes of lipids and minerals. So we can see that not only protein, but other non-protein components, including cholesterol, also contribute to post-exercise recovery. So now we come to the discussion of supplements. Do athletes need supplements? First of all, we have to understand that there's no standardization or laws to test safety and effectiveness of supplements. We also need to understand that FDA declares dietary supplements to be treated separate from foods. So if athletes are consuming enough food, they do not need supplements. And the position of other institutions is also that supplements should only be required if the individuals have a requirement or a deficiency. And no vitamin and mineral supplements should be required if the athlete is consuming adequate energy from a variety of foods. Now we come to the discussion of protein needs for non-athletes, also known as the general public. So we are considering a healthy individual here. And we have to understand that under steady state conditions, rate of intake and absorption of amino acids is maintained in zero equilibrium. Excess amino acids are not stored in the body and must be oxidized to carbon dioxide, water, and urea. And the rate of oxidation of amino acids is dependent on the concentration of amino acids in the amino acid pool, the nutritional status, and physiological needs. Whenever the rate of dietary protein is adequate, the body eliminates amino acids at an equal rate, establishing zero net amino acid retention. And replacement of obligatory utilization and loss of amino acids is the basis of protein requirement by healthy adults. And we have to also know that consumption of dietary proteins must be considered in the context of other energy substrates. So, how much protein is required by an individual then? Well, we know that protein needs are based on individual requirements, and we also know that protein is measured through nitrogen balance, which is always in homeostasis in a healthy individual. So any excess protein intake will be of no use. But we also know that RDAs are the minimum requirement to prevent net nitrogen loss in inactive individuals. So a little fluctuation does not hurt, but it does not mean that you can overload on proteins, and especially no overloading through supplements. So by now we are clear that extra protein would not help a healthy individual. So obviously a supplement would not be required. But just to see that the biological plausibility or potential toxicity of an amino acid supplement can be assessed by comparing the dose on the product label with the amount consumed in a typical diet. And we can see that many marketed supplements have insignificant amino acids. So, who's recommending these high protein diets and why? As far as athletes are concerned, coaches play a great role in their lives, and some coaches do need nutrition education. A study was conducted which showed that after educating the coaches, they recommended high carbohydrate intake, not protein. And hydration was also seen to be a very important factor. As far as non athletes are concerned, media plays a great role because whatever is happening in the athlete world gets transferred to the non athlete world. And our capitalist culture is such that that also promotes high protein diets for their own benefit. And then we have our fad diets, which promote high protein diets in order to lose weight. So, in conclusion, we can say that athletes need high protein diets, but how much is high? In some literatures, there's a range around 1.5 grams per kg to 2.2 grams per kg. But we have to keep in mind that it's not only protein, but a combination of all macro and micronutrients. And it has to be individual based, it has to be dose dependent. The food matrix has to be taken into consideration, the hydration level has to be taken into consideration. And protein needs get fulfilled through food, so there is no need for extra supplementation. As far as non athletes are concerned, the same applies to them. It has to be individual based. You have to keep in mind the macro and micronutrients. You have to take into consideration the food matrix. And you have to understand that if a person does not have high protein needs, for example, if a person does not have injury, trauma, or diseases, there's no need for high protein for them, especially no need for extra supplementation.